Hey class, we are going to jump into our second lecture of week 7. We're going to look at the topic of intelligence and how it relates to knowledge. But we're going to look at that a little bit indirectly by talking about the subject of mindsets. The name I would associate with that is Carol Dweck. She's sort of the founder of the mindsets theory. There's a text I believe she wrote about mindsets, excuse me, that's pretty popular, even outside of academia. And of course, she has a lot of publications on the topic as well, academic publications, and how it relates to intelligence. Carol Dweck breaks it down, this idea of mindsets, into two different categories. We can either have a growth mindset or a fixed mindset. And what that means in terms of intelligence, which broadly intelligence is defined as just problem solving. I mean, there's more to it than that. But when we think about intelligence, a growth mindset looks at intelligence as something that can change, that can grow, that can evolve, that is plastic, that is moldable, and shaped by experience. Whereas a fixed mindset is very much like, hey, what you were born with is what you get. You have a fixed amount of intelligence, for example, and there's, not a way to improve it or change it. And so some of the patterns we might see, in the classroom when students adopt one of these two mindsets, with a growth mindset, we tend to see more of a focus on mastery rather than performance. We tend to see more challenge-seeking behaviors. People who have a growth mindset are more likely to seek out things that are kind of outside their comfort zone, challenges. Versus a fixed mindset, you're probably seeing more of a focus on performance, and maybe in this case, it may be more performance avoidance. And then they're more likely to avoid challenges. They're likely more likely to avoid things that might push them outside of their comfort zone or that might make them feel less intelligent. And then adding on to this, there's a lot of other researchers, of course, who are still, publishing in this area, and some of them you can read their works cited below. But the idea is that it's as teachers and parents, when you're, working with kids, whether it's at home or in the classroom or wherever, your mindset matters too. That kind of mindset that, a parent brings to the table or the teacher brings to the table can influence the students' mindset as well. So we tend to see the research that looks at these different kinds of mindsets. When people adopt more of a fixed mindset, you tend to see, in terms of classroom, in terms of performance, we tend to see more inequities in STEM performance, meaning we're seeing those students with fixed mindsets not performing as well as maybe their growth mindset peers, and they tend to be less motivated. And we talked, we did a whole kind of unit in this course on motivation. Motivation is such a powerful influence on academic success. So when you have students, not being as motivated, that can impact their performance as well. How do we promote growth mindset? Because really, that's kind of the mindset we would like for students to adopt. Giving students how you give students feedback is really important to facilitating a growth mindset. There's a lot of research that has looked into this, how we present feedback. When a student does well on an assignment, for example, you can say things like, "Wow, you're really smart," or you can say things like, "Wow, you really challenged yourself." Focusing not so much on the skill, but the effort. When you focus on effort and you focus on kind of stepping outside of your comfort zone, for example, that's a way that kind of creates that growth mindset opportunity for students to adopt. And then teaching your students about the malleability of the brain, that, hey, the brain changes with the experience. So therefore, hey, intelligence does, just because maybe you're struggling with something in class right now, with more practice, the brain is going to change, your learning is going to change, and you could become more capable. And then also talking about your own challenges and setbacks and how you overcome them. Again, kind of going back to that social cognitive theory. And if you can model for students how you deal with setbacks and how you deal with challenges and show them ways of persevering, those are the kinds of skills that might, that kind of growth mindset skills that can kind of rub off onto your students as well. So that's going to be it. I think we have another lecture on mindsets, but we'll go ahead and stop this one and we'll pick up with lecture number 3. All right, take care, everyone. Bye.